Before starting this tutorial, one thing I want to make perfectly clear is that you will load scenes and unload scenes on the server only when using Flex Scene Manager. If you want to load scenes on the client using the standard Unity Scene Manager, you can definitely do that just fine, but when you're using Flex Scene Manager, the actions should always be done from the server, and those server actions will in return be sent to clients. So if you were to issue a load or unload scene on the server would take appropriate action and then tell the clients to do the same. Before I begin talking about the load and unload methods, I won't actually be demonstrating any of these in use because there's more stuff to cover in regards to them, such as the parameters. So just keep that in mind that will be done in another video. If you've seen the project preview video, which I assume you have, you would know that I mentioned there are two types of scenes. There are networked scenes and then there are connection scenes. And to just go over that information again, a network scene is a scene that loads on the server and for all clients, and future clients will automatically load into these scenes. As you can see, that's exactly what it says in the summary. For example, if I were to load blue scene as a networked scene, as another player joins, blue scene would also load for them. The next option is load connection scenes, and this is where you load scenes for a specific connection. This means that only that player connection will be loaded into the scene. And as you see, it says load scenes on server and tells connections to load them as well. Other connections will not load this scene. That is, unless you of course tell them to. I do realize there are some parameters here which you probably don't recognize, such as the single scene data and so on. I won't be talking about those in this video, but I will definitely be covering them. And just going back real quick to the load connection scenes, if you want to load a client into a scene in which another client is already in and it's not a networked scene, you can definitely load a connection scene for one player first and then another player later if you like. And you'll notice when loading connection scenes, you have the option to put in one connection to load for only one player, and you have an option to load for multiple connections if you want to load in multiple players. And one thing worth noting, if you want to preload a scene on the server without having any clients connected, you can call load connection scenes, passing in a network connection array with no entries. And this will generate a scene on the server that is not considered a network scene and no clients will be brought into it. And that's ultimately it for loading scenes. And unloading scenes are very much similar. So you have the option to unload network scenes. Again, network scenes are scenes which are networked to all players. So if a scene is considered networked, then every single player will be in that scene. One important thing to note is that it unloads additive scenes on the server and for all clients. If you want to unload a single scene, you simply cannot do that. You have to load a new single scene. This is typical Unity behavior. You cannot unload a single scene if there are no other scenes to take its place. The Flex Scene Manager is no different. If you want to load into a new single scene, then you would call load networked or load connection scenes depending on what you want to do and pass in that single scene data. You'll notice that you can unload scenes using an additive scenes string array. This will try to find the scenes by scene name and unload them. This will work in most situations unless you are using scene stacking, and that is something I will talk about later. But to give a brief summary, scene stacking as described in the project preview is when you load the same scene multiple times. Since the same scene would be loaded multiple times, you can't reliably fetch the scene by the name because it will exist multiple times. When that is the case, you can unload network scenes using additive scenes data, which will let you reference those particular scenes. And again, additive scenes data is something I will be covering in another video. And next you have unload connection scenes. It is basically the same as load connection scenes except for unloading, and you'll pass in the network connection to unload or multiple connections if there is more than one. You have the additive scene string array, that is, and you have the unload options, which I will talk about later. I went down a bit, and here are the unload connection scenes that accept additive scene datas instead of using the strings. This is just like I talked about with the unload network connection.